When Frank Morrison grabbed my arm outside Morrison's car wash, his face was ghost white. His grip was tight, desperate. This wasn't the easygoing friend I'd known for 4 decades. This was a stranger, gripped by a terror so profound it stole my breath. "Barb, listen to me. This isn't a joke." His voice was a low, urgent rasp. I tried to pull back, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Frank, you're scaring me. What's wrong?" "No, you listen," he commanded, his eyes wild. "You need to get Jessica and those kids away from Derek. Today, not tomorrow, not this evening. Now." The world tilted. Jessica was my daughter. Lily and Owen were my grandchildren. Derek was my son-in-law. "What are you talking about? Away where? Derek's at work." "He's not who you think he is," Frank said, his knuckles white as he gripped my arm. "He's not who anybody thinks he is." 2 hours later, I sat in my daughter's immaculate living room. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. On the coffee table between us sat a manila envelope, heavy as a brick, filled with evidence that would destroy everything Jessica believed about her perfect marriage. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. Let me back up to that Tuesday morning. It was September 2025, crisp and clear. I'd volunteered to pick up Derek's BMW from the car wash, doing my daughter a favor like I'd done 1,000 times before. It was my role. At 64, 3 years widowed, I'd become the family's convenient helper. Need babysitting? Call mom. Need errands? Call mom. Need someone to fade into the background while they live their important busy lives? Call mom. I didn't mind. Most days. I pulled into Morrison's around 10. Frank was standing by the entrance, a clipboard in his hand, and my heart did that stupid little flutter it always did. We dated 40 years ago, back when big hair and shoulder pads were fashionable, and we thought we had all the time in the world. Life had other plans. I married Jim. Frank married Sarah. But after Sarah passed 5 years ago, we'd found our way back to a comfortable, easy friendship, built on shared history and the kind of deep, quiet affection that doesn't fade with time. "Barbara Hayes," he said as I got out of my car. But his usual warm smile, the one that always reached his blue eyes, was missing. His weathered hands gripped a manila envelope like it might explode. "Morning, Frank. Here for the BMW. Is it ready?" He ignored the question. He looked past me, scanning the parking lot. "We need to talk, private." My own smile faltered. "Okay, is something wrong?" "Private," he repeated and grabbed my elbow. He didn't pull me. He propelled me into his small, cluttered office, smelling of vinyl cleaner and old coffee. He pulled me inside and locked the door. The click of the bolt echoed in the tiny room. "Frank, what on earth is going on?" He didn't speak. He just held out the envelope. It was shaking slightly in his hand. "My guys found this," he said, his voice strained. "Wedged under Derek's driver's seat. Fell out when they were doing the deep clean. I was going to put it in the console. Then I saw the name." I took the envelope from him. It felt heavy, wrong. My fingers fumbled with the clasp. Inside, the first thing I saw was a Maryland driver's license. Derek's face stared back at me, smiling his charming, perfect smile, but the name read, David Brennan. "I don't understand," I whispered, my mouth dry. It's a fake. A gag gift?" "Keep looking," Frank said. His voice was grim. Beneath it was a second license. Same face. This one read, Derek Morrison. Different birth dates, different addresses. My legs went weak and I gripped the edge of Frank's desk. "There's more," Frank said quietly. He was right. I pulled out printed emails, long chains of them, discussing property transfers, bank statements for accounts in the Cayman Islands, with balances that made me dizzy, and then, at the bottom, a reservation confirmation. 2 adults and 2 children, on a one-way flight to Costa Rica. Departure date, October 15th. 3 weeks away. "Frank," I said, my voice failing, "I don't understand. Why would Derek need multiple identities? Why Costa Rica?" "Because he's done this before." Frank turned his computer monitor toward me. He pulled up a news article from a Baltimore paper. My son-in-law's face smiled from the screen, younger but unmistakable, beneath a chilling headline. Con man sentenced to 5 years for identity fraud and bigamy. The room tilted. My breath hitched. No, that can't be him. That's not Derek. Jessica met him 10 years ago at a charity fundraiser. He's in finance. "Read the dates, Barb," Frank insisted, his voice gentle but firm. The article was from 2013. The man, Derek Brennan, had served 18 months before his release on parole. The release date was late 2014, just 4 months before he met my daughter at that gala. I stumbled back into Frank's desk chair, my knees giving out. Jessica, my daughter, 36 years old, a pediatric nurse who saved children's lives, had married a convicted criminal. She'd given him 2 babies, 8-year-old Lily, 5-year-old Owen. "There's a pattern, Barb," Frank said, kneeling in front of me. "I read the whole article. He targets widows with daughters, gains their trust, marries the daughter, slowly isolates them from their family. Then he empties the accounts and vanishes." He paused, and his next words landed like a physical blow. "Usually takes the kids to use as leverage." My hand flew to my mouth. "The kids?" "The flight reservation," Frank said, tapping the paper. 2 adults and 2 children. He's planning to disappear with your grandkids. 3 years ago, when my Jim died from a sudden heart attack, I'd been devastated, utterly broken, but I'd rebuilt. I had my small house, Jim's life insurance, and most importantly, I had Jessica and the grandkids just 15 minutes away. They were my world, except nothing had been normal. Over the past 2 years, Derek had been slowly, subtly, creating distance. "Jessica needs to focus on our immediate family, Barb," he'd say, his voice always reasonable. "Maybe space out the visits. Let them build their own unit." I thought I was being paranoid, an overbearing mother-in-law. Turned out I wasn't paranoid enough. Now I understood. He wasn't building a family unit. He was severing ties, isolating my daughter, preparing for his escape. I need to tell Jessica. I stood up, the envelope clutched in my trembling hands. Frank caught my arm. "Be careful." "Barb, this man is a professional. If he realizes you know, he might move up his timeline. He could be gone by tonight." A cold, hard fury I hadn't felt in years rose up in my chest, choking the fear. "He's not taking my grandchildren," I said, my voice flat. "I don't care how dangerous he is." Frank studied my face for a long moment. He saw the resolve there. He nodded slowly. "Then we do this smart. Let me make some calls. I have a cousin, Marcus Crawford, retired FBI. He'll know what to do." By the time I left Morrison's an hour later, I had Frank's cousin ready to review the evidence. I had copies of every document safely hidden. The original envelope sat on my passenger seat, a bomb waiting to detonate. I pulled into my daughter's driveway at 11:30. The quiet suburban street was peaceful. Through the window, I could see Jessica in the kitchen, kneading dough. Lily's pink bicycle lay on the front lawn. Owen's toy trucks were lined up perfectly on the porch. Normal. Perfect. All built on a foundation of grotesque lies. I took a deep, shuddering breath. I picked up the envelope. I walked toward my daughter's front door, my steps heavy. I was about to destroy her world to save it. Jessica answered the door with flour on her nose and a smile that nearly broke my heart. "Mom, perfect timing. I'm making cookies. Want to stay for lunch?" Behind her, I could see Lily coloring at the kitchen table. Owen was building a tower of blocks. Everything looked so wholesome, so safe. I almost turned around. I almost ran. "Actually, honey," I said, my voice cracking, "we need to talk. Is Derek home?" "He's at work, some big meeting." She wiped her hands on her apron, her smile fading as she saw my face. "Mom, you look pale. Are you okay? Can we talk? Privately?" Jessica's expression tightened. She knew this wasn't about lunch. She called to Lily. "Sweetie, take Owen upstairs and play for a bit. Mommy needs to talk to Grandma." "Okay." Once the kids were upstairs, the house was suddenly terribly quiet. I sat at the kitchen table and placed the manila envelope between us. "I need you to look at something," I said, "and I need you to please keep an open mind." "You're scaring me, Mom." "Good," I said, surprising myself with the harshness in my voice. "You should be scared." I pulled out the driver's licenses first. Frank found these in Derek's car today. Jessica picked up the Maryland license, confusion crossing her face. "David Brennan, who's that?" Then she saw the second one. Her hand started shaking. "I don't understand. Why would Derek have two IDs with different names?" "Keep looking," I said, pushing the pile of papers toward her. She read through the documents, her face losing color with each page, the bank statements, the property transfers. When she got to the news article about Derek Brennan's conviction, she dropped the papers like they'd burned her. "No." Her voice was a sharp, terrified gasp. "No, this is a mistake. This is fake." "Honey, look at the face," I pleaded. "It's him. Lots of people look similar. This David Brennan person, maybe he just resembles Derek." But her voice was cracking. She knew. Somewhere deep down, in the place where truth lives, she knew. I pulled out my phone and showed her the flight confirmation I'd photographed. One-way tickets to Costa Rica, October 15th. 2 adults, 2 children. Lily Morrison, Owen Morrison, I read from the screen. "Morrison?" Jessica's voice was barely a whisper. "He's using Frank's last name," I said. "Probably to throw off anyone trying to track them. He's planning to take the kids, Jessica." I reached across the table for her hand, but she snatched it away. She stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the tile. "You're wrong," she shouted, her face mottling with anger. "You've always been suspicious of Derek. You never thought he was good enough for me." That stung, because it was partly true. "Jessica, listen carefully. When did you meet Derek?" "February 2015 at the hospital charity gala." She was rattling off the facts, defending her timeline. "And when did he propose?" "That summer, June." "Less than 8 months from meeting to marriage," I said. "Didn't that seem fast?" "It was romantic." He said, "When you know, you know." But the doubt was a heavy shadow in her voice. I pulled out the last document, the photograph of his parole paperwork. He was released January 20th, 2015, 4 weeks before he met you. Jessica stood up abruptly, her chair clattering to the floor. "I need you to leave." "Honey, please, he's a con man." "No," she screamed, covering her ears. "You show up here with these fake documents. You try to destroy my marriage. I don't know why you're doing this, but it needs to stop. Look at the children's birth certificates," I pleaded, getting desperate. "Check them against his real birthday. I bet you'll find inconsistencies." "Get out of my house." Jessica's voice was cold now, protective mother cold. "And don't come back until you're ready to apologize." I gathered the documents slowly, my hands shaking. "Jessica, I love you. I'm trying to protect you and the kids. The only thing they need protection from is their grandmother's paranoid delusions." She practically pushed me toward the door. "Derek has been nothing but good to us. He provides for our family. Whatever Frank Morrison told you, it's lies." The door slammed in my face. I stumbled back to my car. Through the front window, I watched my daughter sink onto the couch, her shoulders shaking. She'd started crying. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, my heart breaking for her, my mind racing. I wanted to call the police, but Frank's cousin had warned him. Without concrete evidence of a current crime, authorities might not act fast enough. Derek would see it coming, and he'd vanish. My phone buzzed. A text from Frank. "How did it go?" I typed with trembling fingers. "Disaster." She kicked me out. His reply was immediate. "Come back to the shop. My cousin's here." Frank's cousin, Marcus Crawford, was a bulky man in his 50s with sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. He listened to my account of the confrontation with Jessica, nodding slowly without interrupting. Typical response. he said finally, his voice a calm baritone. The spouse always defends them at first. It's cognitive dissonance. Accepting the truth means accepting that their entire marriage, their children, their whole life was a lie. So what do we do? I asked, feeling helpless. She won't listen to me. We build an airtight case before confronting him directly, Marcus said. He spread his notes across Frank's desk. I made some calls on my way over. Derek Brennan's real name is Derek Morrison. No relation to you, Frank. He's used at least 5 identities over 15 years. Same pattern every time, he continued. Targets vulnerable families, particularly those with a recent loss. But my husband died 3 years ago, I said, confused. Derek met Jessica 10 years ago. These guys are long game players, Marcus said, tapping a timeline he'd sketched. He likely identified your daughter as a target years ago. Single woman, good job as a nurse, stable income. When your husband died, it gave him the perfect opportunity to tighten his grip. Suddenly, Jessica was more vulnerable, more dependent on Derek. He positioned himself as her rock during her grief. The calculated cruelty of it made me sick. He's been planning this for 10 years? I whispered. Possibly. Or he saw an opportunity and adapted his plan. Either way, your daughter wasn't random. She was selected. Marcus spent the next hour explaining Derek's probable endgame. He'd been slowly transferring assets, telling Jessica they were investments. The Costa Rica flight would be followed by new identities for himself and the kids. Jessica would be left behind, broke and terrified. He'd threatened to disappear with Lily and Owen forever if she went to the police, Marcus explained. Women in her position often don't report it. They're terrified of never seeing their children again. He'll send occasional photos, proof of life, in exchange for her silence. Maybe even demand more money. I felt the bile rise in my throat. How do we stop him? We need Jessica to cooperate, Marcus said firmly. She has to check their accounts, look for irregularities, but more importantly, she has to act normal around Derek. If he suspects she knows, he'll vanish immediately. She won't talk to me, I repeated, rubbing my temples. Frank cleared his throat. Both Marcus and I turned to him. Frank looked uncomfortable, but determined. Barb, he said, you and I have been dancing around something for a while now. I'm asking you to dinner tomorrow night. A real date. I stared at him. You're asking me on a date? Now? While my daughter's family is falling apart? I'm asking, he said, his voice soft but firm, because life is uncertain and precious, and I've wasted enough time being afraid. He reached over and squeezed my hand. Also, he added, his expression turning practical, it gives me a legitimate reason to stay close to you. Derek knows we're old friends. If we start dating, I've got a reason to be around more often. Extra eyes on the situation. Marcus nodded approvingly. That's smart thinking, Frank. I looked at Frank. Really looked at him. At 66, he'd aged well. Silver hair, laugh lines around blue eyes that had always seen straight through my defenses. We'd broken up 40 years ago because we were too young and scared of our own shadows. But now we were both alone, and that connection, it had never really gone away. Okay, I said, my voice quiet. Tomorrow night, pick me up at 7. Frank's smile was like the sunrise. It's a date. Marcus coughed loudly. Once Derek's in custody, you two can candle all you want. Right now, we need a plan. We spent another hour strategizing. Marcus would dig deeper into Derek's financial trail. Frank would use his local contacts to gather information. And I had the hardest job. I had to find a way to get through to Jessica. That night, as I lay in bed, unable to sleep, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. Stop asking questions about Derek Brennan. For your daughter's sake. My heart hammered against my ribs. I screenshotted the message and forwarded it to Marcus. His response came within minutes. Don't respond. Save everything. This confirms he's monitoring. He's close. I stared at my ceiling, thinking about my grandchildren sleeping just 15 minutes away, in the same house as that monster. Lily with her gap-toothed smile, Owen with his dinosaur obsession. Derek Morrison had picked the wrong family. I might be a 64-year-old widow, but I was also a woman who'd survived and rebuilt. I wasn't about to let some con artist steal my grandchildren. My phone buzzed again at 3 a.m., another unknown number. My blood ran cold. He knows you're talking. He's scared. He keeps his cash and real passports in a storage unit. Unit 14B, self-store on Route 40. He visits late. Go now. I sat bolt upright in bed. Was this a trap? Or was it a mistake? Someone trying to help? I called Frank. He answered on the first ring, his voice thick with sleep. Barb? What's wrong? I got another text, Frank. It says Derek has a storage unit on Route 40. With cash and passports, it says to go now. Silence on the line. Then, Barb, that sounds like a trap. The first message was a threat. This one... I know, Frank, I know. But what if it's not? What if this is our chance to get the real evidence? The passports, the cash? Something we can take to the police right now? I was already pulling on my jeans. This is a bad idea, he said. It's the only idea I have. He's planning to leave, Frank. We don't have time. I'm going. With or without you. I'll be there in 10 minutes, he growled and hung up. We drove in his truck, the dark, empty streets flying by. The storage facility on Route 40 was a desolate, sprawling complex of corrugated metal doors, lit by flickering, buzzing, fluorescent lights. This place gives me the creeps, Frank muttered, parking the truck in the shadows, away from the gate. The code? The text didn't say. Of course it didn't. Frank got out, pulling a heavy-duty bolt cutter from his truck bed. Stay here. Lock the doors. Like hell, I said, getting out and slamming the door. I'm coming with you. He cursed but didn't argue. We found the keypad, but it was old. Frank jimmied the casing with a screwdriver and bypassed the circuit. The heavy iron gate slid open with a metallic shriek that echoed in the pre-dawn quiet. We moved fast, ducking between the rows of units. 12B, 13B, Frank whispered. Here, 14B. It had a simple, cheap padlock on it. Not the high-security disc lock you'd expect for someone hiding cash and fake passports. This is too easy, Barb, Frank warned, his hand on the bolt cutter. Or he's arrogant, I countered, my heart pounding. He thinks no one would ever look. Open it, Frank. Please. Frank sighed, positioned the cutters, and squeezed. The lock snapped with a dull crack. He slid the heavy door up, a cloud of dust and the smell of mildew billowing out. He clicked on his flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating nothing. The unit was completely empty, just a concrete floor stained and cracked, dust bunnies, and in the far corner, a single dead rat. It's a trap, Frank said, grabbing my arm and pulling me back out. He wanted us here. He's watching. My stomach turned to ice. We have to go, now. We ran back to the truck, the sound of our footsteps echoing off the metal walls. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see a figure step out from the shadows, or headlights to flick on. Frank threw the truck into reverse, tires squealing on the pavement, and we tore out of the facility. I sank into my seat, shaking with a mixture of fury and fear. He played me. He played me. We wasted hours, Frank. He wanted to see if I'd take the bait. He's testing me. And now he knows we're serious, Frank said grimly, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. This just got a lot more dangerous. I got home just as the sun was starting to streak the sky pink. I was exhausted, furious, and terrified. I tried to sleep for a few hours, but my mind wouldn't shut off. At 9 a.m., I walked outside to get my mail and stopped dead. My car's windshield was smashed. A spiderweb of cracked glass glittered in the morning sun. I didn't scream. I just felt a cold, hard resolve settle in my bones. I took photos, filed a police report online, and then I called Marcus. He smashed my windshield. He's escalating, Marcus said, his voice grim. Good. Good, I nearly shouted. How is this good? Means he's scared, Marcus said. The storage unit was a test to see what you'd do. The windshield is a direct warning. He's making mistakes. Scared people get sloppy. Keep pushing. Keep pushing? He just vandalized my car. I understand you're scared, Barb, but this is the moment. He's off balance. Now we hit him again. Have you tried calling Jessica? She won't pick up, I said, frustrated. Then go to her. Don't let this stop you. It's what he wants. I hung up with Marcus, trembling. I looked at the shattered glass on my driveway, then back at my car. A sudden, horrible, sinking feeling hit me. The envelope. The original envelope. I'd been so careful with the copies, giving one set to Marcus, hiding another. But the original... After Jessica kicked me out, I'd put it back in my glove box. Stupid. I'd been so upset I wasn't thinking. I ran to the car, my heart in my throat. The passenger door was unlocked, the glass of the window punched in. I fumbled for the glove box latch. I pulled it open. It was empty. The envelope was gone. The original IDs, the original bank statements, the printed flight confirmation. Everything. No. I tore the glove box apart. I ripped through the papers, the old napkins, the owner's manual. Nothing. I scrambled to the back seat, pulling up the floor mats, digging under the seats, my hands getting cut on the shards of glass. It wasn't there. I ran back into my house, my mind racing. Did I take it inside? I tore my kitchen apart. I dumped my purse on the table. I ran to my desk, shuffling through piles of mail. Nothing. It was gone. When they smashed the windshield, they'd unlocked the car and stolen the one thing that proved I wasn't crazy. I grabbed my phone and called Frank, my voice shaking so hard I could barely speak. Frank, the envelope, the original one, it's gone. He took it. When he smashed the window, he stole the evidence. Barb, slow down, Frank said. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure, I yelled, hysteria rising. It's gone. I have nothing. No IDs, no flight plans, no conviction article. I have nothing. It's just my word against his. Jessica will never believe me now. Barb, calm down. We have the copies, Frank said, trying to be the voice of reason. Copies aren't the same. Derek can claim they're fakes that I made. Oh God, Frank, what do I do? You hold tight, he said. I'm on my way. I hung up and slid to the floor, my back against the kitchen cabinets. He was smart. He hadn't just warned me, he'd disarmed me. Now I was just a paranoid, grieving widow, a crazy mother-in-law. I had to act. I had to get to Jessica. I had to make her believe me, even with nothing in my hands. I was pulling on my shoes, my hands still shaking, when my phone rang. It was Jessica. My hand trembled as I answered. Jessica? Hello, Mom. Her voice was small, broken. All the anger from yesterday was gone, replaced by a hollow, brittle fear that I recognized instantly. Can you come over? She whispered. Derek's working late and I need to show you something. I'll be right there, I said, grabbing my keys. I arrived at Jessica's house in 12 minutes, breaking every speed limit. She opened the door before I could even knock, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She didn't hug me, she just stepped back, her arms wrapped around herself. I checked the accounts, she whispered, her voice dead. Like you said, I found his password file. There's money missing, a lot of money. She led me down the hall to Derek's home office, the one room in the house I'd never been in. He always said it was his private workspace, she said, her voice bitter. I respected that. God, I was so stupid. You weren't stupid, I said, putting my arm around her. You were trusting. She'd pulled up their bank statements on Derek's gleaming, expensive computer. I logged in using the password I thought was just for our joint account. Turns out, there are 6 other accounts I never knew about. Her finger traced the numbers on the screen, a long list of outgoing transfers. Over the last 18 months, he's been moving money. Small amounts at first, but in the last 3 months, it's accelerated. Mom, he's moved nearly $200,000. I felt cold. $200,000? My inheritance from Dad, she whispered, her voice cracking. The money he left me when he died. Derek convinced me to put it in high-yield investments. He said he'd handle everything. She laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. I signed the papers without even reading them. I put my arm around her shoulders. She was shaking violently. Honey, I'm so sorry. There's more. She clicked to another folder. I found these emails. He's been communicating with someone named Valerie Morrison. Morrison? She signs off with love you and she talks about missing him and the kids. Our kids, Mom. He's telling another woman my children are hers. The betrayal was so deep, so twisted it was hard to comprehend. Derek wasn't just stealing money. He was selling a fantasy, our family, to someone else. Have you confronted him? I asked. Not yet. I wanted you here first. Jessica wiped her eyes, and when she looked at me, the fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard fury that mirrored my own. You were right, she said. You were right about everything. The multiple IDs, she continued, her voice gaining strength. The flight to Costa Rica, all of it. I found these. She walked over to his immaculate desk and pulled open the bottom drawer. She reached in and pulled out a file. He hid them under a false bottom, she said. I only found it because I was shaking so hard. I knocked the whole drawer off its runners. She threw the contents on the desk. Printed out tickets. One way to Costa Rica, October 15th. And beneath them, 2 brand new, official-looking passports. One for Lily, one for Owen, different names, different birth dates. We need to call the police, I said, my voice shaking. Now. I called them an hour ago, Jessica said. I stared at her. My daughter, who 24 hours ago had thrown me out of her house, was now 10 steps ahead of me. I called that man, she said. Your friend, Marcus. His number was on the back of a business card you left on the counter yesterday. I kept it, just in case. Jessica. He told me who to call, a Detective Chen. They're sending her over at 8. I told them everything. I emailed them copies of everything on this computer. Pride swelled in my chest, so fierce it almost choked me. My daughter was fighting back. What about the kids? I asked, a new panic rising. Where are they? They're at Miss Patricia's home daycare, she said quickly, the regular place I use when I work late shifts. I told her I needed a few extra hours tonight. I didn't let them go to Derek's parents' house. Something always felt off about that. Now I know why. They probably weren't even his parents. Smart instincts, I said. Jessica stood up abruptly. I need you to take the kids tonight. After the detective leaves, I'm picking them up and bringing them straight to your house. Pack bags for a week. I don't want them here when Derek gets arrested. Arrested? The detective... She said they'd been building a case against him. The FBI has had him under surveillance for 6 months. My call tonight, my cooperation. She said it gave them the final piece they needed. She met my eyes and I saw steel there. My daughter was back. He's done, Mom. This time, he's actually done. The doorbell rang at exactly 8 p.m. Detective Sarah Chen was a compact woman in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. She listened as Jessica walked her through everything, her face impassive. She took notes and photographed the documents on the desk. Mrs. Brennan, she said, finally closing her notebook, I need to be honest. Your husband is dangerous. He's wanted in connection with similar crimes in 4 states. When we move to arrest him, there's a possibility he'll try to flee. Jessica's jaw tightened. When will you arrest him? We're coordinating with federal agents. Ideally, we'd like to take him into custody at his workplace tomorrow afternoon. Public location, less chance of complications. He has weapons, I said, my voice coming out higher than I intended. Detective Chen's expression softened slightly. We have reason to believe he keeps a handgun in his vehicle. He's never been violent in his previous cons, but we don't take chances. I had to ask, if you've been watching him for 6 months, why wait until now? Why did he get this close? Good question, Detective Chen said. Federal cases take time to build, especially when they cross state lines. We needed ironclad evidence of intent to commit a current crime, not just past offenses. The flight reservation and the fake passports give us that. More importantly, we needed a victim willing to testify immediately. Your daughter's cooperation tonight means we can move fast before he realizes we're closing in. If we'd moved too early, a good lawyer might have gotten him off on technicalities. It made sense, sort of, but I still didn't like how close we'd come to losing Lily and Owen. After the detective left, Jessica and I sat in the kitchen, the silence heavy. Finally, she spoke. "That threat you got yesterday, the text message, was it from Derek?" "Marcus thinks so. And your windshield this morning." It wasn't a question. Her voice was flat, dead. "He threatened my mother." "What kind of monster does that?" "The kind," I said, taking her hand, "who's about to spend a very long time in prison." We drove together, in my car, to pick up Lily and Owen from Miss Patricia's cozy little house. The elderly woman handed them over with a warm smile, completely unaware of the drama unfolding. "Such good children," she said. "See you next week." "Actually, I'll call you, Patricia," Jessica said, her voice impossibly steady. In the car, Lily chattered about the new toys she'd played with, while Owen dozed in his booster seat. Jessica drove carefully, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I keep thinking about all the signs I missed," she said quietly, her eyes on the road. "The way he'd get angry if I asked too many questions about his past. The times I caught him in small lies, I just explained them away." "He's a professional," I said. "He knows exactly how to manipulate people. None of this is your fault." She turned to me, her eyes filled with tears. "Isn't it, though? You had reservations from the beginning." I squeezed her hand. "You fell in love. There's no fault in that." At my house, I'd already prepared the guest room. Jessica and I went through the motions, settling them in, reading stories, trying to maintain an atmosphere of absolute normalcy for their sake. After they were finally asleep, we sat at my kitchen table with cups of tea. Neither of us drank. "Frank called earlier," I said quietly. "He wanted to check on you." Jessica managed a small, tired smile. "Frank Morrison. I always wondered if you two would reconnect. Dad used to joke about it." Tears stung my eyes. "He did?" "All the time. He'd say, 'If anything happens to me, you've got my blessing to find Frank.' He knew you guys had something special." "Jim was a good man," I whispered. "He was," she agreed, "and he'd want you to be happy. And he'd want me to be smart enough to learn from my mistakes." My phone buzzed on the table. A text from Marcus. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m. at Brennan's office. Be ready." I showed Jessica the message. Her expression hardened. "Good. Let's end this." The next morning moved with a surreal, agonizing slowness. I made the kids pancakes, cutting them into the shapes of dinosaurs for Owen and butterflies for Lily. We were all acting, playing a part, the happy family, the normal grandma, all while my stomach churned with acid. At 9, Frank picked me up. "Breakfast," he said. It wasn't a question. We went to a small diner 2 towns over, away from anyone who might know us. "You barely slept," Frank observed, studying my face across the Formica table. "Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined something going wrong," I admitted. "Derek getting away, the kids getting hurt. I keep thinking how close we came to losing them." Frank reached across the table and took my hand. His was warm and strong. "But we didn't lose them. You found the evidence in time. That took courage, Barb. You barely knew me 40 years ago. I knew enough." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "I knew you were fierce and loyal, and that you loved with your whole heart. I knew breaking up with you was the stupidest thing I'd ever done." I looked at our joined hands. "Why now, Frank? After all these years?" "Because Sarah's death taught me time isn't guaranteed. Because I spent 5 years grieving, And when I finally looked around, you were there. Still fierce. Still beautiful. He squeezed my hand gently. And because I'm 66 years old and I'm tired of being afraid. Tears spilled over and ran down my cheeks. I can't think about us right now. Not until Derek is behind bars. I know, he said softly. That's why this isn't a date. It's just two old friends waiting for the world to fall apart or come together. But when this is over, Barb, he said, his smile soft, I'm taking you to dinner, a real date, and I'm going to tell you all the things I should have said 40 years ago. My phone rang at 1:30 p.m. It was Marcus. They're in position, he said, his voice all business. Derek's in his office for what he thinks is a routine afternoon meeting. Does Jessica know to expect my call? She's ready, I said, pacing my living room. Jessica was in the guest room trying to read a book, her phone in her lap. Tell her to stay calm no matter what happens, Marcus said. And Barb, you might want to have Frank there, support system. He's already here, I said, looking at Frank, who was standing by the window. He'd driven me home without being asked. We sat in my living room, the silence screaming. Frank tried to make small talk, but we both gave up. We just waited. 1:45 p.m. 1:50 p.m. At 1:55 p.m., my phone rang. Caller ID, Detective Chen. I snatched it up. Hello? Mrs. Hayes. Chen's voice was crisp and professional. I wanted you to hear this from me. We have Derek Brennan in custody. He's being transported to federal holding. No incidents, no injuries. It's over. The relief was so sudden, so intense, I felt dizzy. My knees buckled. Thank you. Oh, God. Thank you so much. After I hung up, I turned to Frank. I just looked at him for a second, and then I let myself break down. He held me while I sobbed. Great. Heaving cries of terror and relief and rage. When I finally pulled back, his shirt was soaked, but he was smiling. See? I told you we had this. Jessica arrived an hour later. Her face was pale but composed. They arrested him at his desk, she said, her voice flat. Just walked into his glass office in front of everyone and put handcuffs on him. He tried to play innocent, but they had everything. How are you holding up? I asked. She sank onto my couch. Honestly? I don't know. Part of me is relieved. Part of me is humiliated. Everyone at his office knows. It'll be all over town by tomorrow. Jessica Hayes, the woman who protected her children and stopped a dangerous criminal, I corrected firmly. That's the story. Frank cleared his throat from the doorway. For what it's worth, I think your mother's right. You showed real strength. Jessica looked at him. Thank you, Frank, for finding that evidence. If you hadn't been so thorough, if you just ignored that envelope... I pay attention to details, Frank said simply, but I'm glad I could help. An awkward silence fell. Then Jessica looked between us. So, you two, are you dating? Despite everything, I felt my face warm. We're figuring that out. Good. Jessica's expression softened into the first genuine smile I'd seen in days. You deserve to be happy, Mom. You deserve your own happiness. 3 weeks after Derek's arrest, I learned he wasn't just a con man. He was a monster with a much longer reach than any of us had imagined. Marcus called me on a Tuesday morning. Barb, I need you and Jessica to come to my office. There's something you need to see. We arrived within the hour. Marcus had photographs spread across his desk. Women, at least 7 of them, all smiling, many of them with children. These are Derek's other victims, Marcus said, his voice heavy. Over the last 15 years, the FBI's been tracking him, but he was always one step ahead, until you. Jessica picked up one photo, a woman with dark hair and 2 young boys, all in matching Christmas sweaters. Who is she? Amanda Pierce. Married Derek in 2008 under the name Daniel Morrison. He drained her accounts and disappeared with her sons in 2010. They were found 2 years later in Mexico. By then, Marcus said, his voice dropping, the boys didn't even remember their mother. He pointed to another photo. Karen Stiles, 2012. Same pattern. She lost her daughter for 3 years. I felt sick. How many children? 12 that we know of. Some were returned, some weren't. Derek would use them as leverage, demanding money from the mothers. Some women paid him for years just to get occasional proof their kids were alive. Jessica's face had gone white. If we hadn't caught him, Lily and Owen would have been— But we did catch him, I said, my voice firm, though my own hands were shaking. And now, he can't hurt anyone else. There's more, Marcus said, pulling out another file. The prosecutor wants you both to testify at trial, so do 3 of the other victims. Derek's facing charges in 5 states. With all this evidence, he's looking at 40 years, minimum. 40 years, Jessica repeated. He'll be in his 70s when he gets out. If he gets out, Marcus corrected. With his history and the severity of these charges, there's a good chance he'll die in prison. Frank was waiting in his truck outside Marcus's office. One look at my face and he got out, pulling me into his arms right there on the sidewalk. Bad news? Worse than we thought, I whispered, and I told him everything. The other victims, the missing children, the decades of destruction Derek had left behind. I keep thinking, I said, my voice muffled against his shirt. What if I hadn't asked you to clean his car that day? What if your guys hadn't found that envelope? But they did find it, he said, kissing my forehead. And you acted on it. That's what matters. You saved your grandchildren, Barb, and probably a lot of future victims, too. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about those other mothers, the years they'd lost, the trauma that would never fully heal. I'd been lucky. We'd caught Derek before he could disappear. But luck wasn't justice. The next morning, I made a decision. I called Marcus and got the contact information for every woman he'd shown me. And then I started dialing. My name is Barbara Hayes, I told the first woman, Amanda Pierce. Derek Brennan tried to take my grandchildren. I want to make sure he never gets the chance to hurt another family. Will you help me? By the end of the week, I'd spoken to all 7 women. Each had a story that made me want to cry. Each had scars that would never fade. But each also had the same fire I'd felt when I first saw that envelope, the need for justice. We formed a group. We called ourselves the Survivors Circle. Not very original, but it felt right. We met via video calls, sharing our stories, supporting each other, and we made a pact. We would all testify. Every single one of us would stand in that courtroom and make sure Derek Brennan never walked free again. Jessica joined our calls. At first, she was quiet, just listening, but gradually she began to share too. I thought I was so smart, she said during our 3rd meeting, her voice thick. I'm a nurse. I'm educated. How did I not see it? Because he's a professional, Amanda Pierce said, her voice kind but firm. He studied us. He learned our weaknesses. None of us are stupid. We were targeted by someone who made deception his life's work. The solidarity was healing in a way I hadn't expected. Together, we were stronger than Derek could ever be. Derek's first attempt to manipulate us from prison came exactly 1 month after his arrest. Jessica received a letter, handwritten on prison stationery. "Dear Jessica," she read aloud to me, her voice shaking with rage. "I know you must be confused and hurt, but please understand, everything I did was for us. For our family. The money I moved was to protect it from my enemies. The flight to Costa Rica was a safety measure. I never meant to hurt you. Please bring the kids to visit me. I miss them terribly. Love, Derek." "He still thinks I'm stupid enough to fall for his lies," Jessica spat, crumpling the letter. "Don't respond," Marcus advised when we showed him. "He's fishing, trying to see if he still has any control over you. Any response, even an angry one, tells him he's getting to you." But Derek didn't stop. Letters arrived weekly, each one more desperate, more manipulative. He claimed he was being framed, that the evidence was planted, that the other victims were lying for money. When Jessica continued to ignore him, he tried a different tactic. A small, colorful card arrived in the mail, addressed to Lily. "To my darling daughter," it read in his familiar handwriting. "Daddy loves you so much. I hope you're being a good girl. I'll see you soon. XOXO. Jessica called Marcus, incandescent with rage. He sent my 8-year-old daughter a card from prison. How is that even possible? He probably had someone on the outside mail it for him, Marcus said. We'll trace it. In the meantime, screen all mail before the kids see it. The cards kept coming. One for Owen, with dinosaurs. Another for Lily, with a princess. Each one was a poisoned dart, trying to maintain Derek's image as a loving father who'd been wrongly accused. Jessica burned every single one. He's trying to poison them against me, Jessica said one night over dinner at my house. We were trying to have a normal family meal, making himself the victim so they'll beg me to forgive him. They're smart kids, I said. They'll see through it. But doubt crept in. Lily had started asking questions. Why is Daddy in jail? Did he really do bad things? Owen was too young to fully understand, but he'd started having nightmares. Frank, who'd been quietly eating his pot roast, set down his fork. Maybe it's time to tell them the truth. Jessica and I both looked at him. An age-appropriate version, he clarified. But the truth. Kids know when adults are hiding things, and what they imagine is always worse than reality. He was right. We'd been trying to protect them, but our silence was creating more fear. That weekend, Jessica sat down with both kids on the living room floor. I was there for support. Frank, too, sitting quietly on the sofa. Your father made some very bad choices, Jessica told them, her voice gentle but firm. He lied to people, and he took things that didn't belong to him. He hurt families, including ours. That's why he's in jail. Did he hurt you, Mommy? Lily asked, her eyes wide. Not physically, Jessica said, but yes, he hurt me. And he was planning to take you and Owen away from me. Grandma stopped him. Owen, who had been listening intently, looked over at me with new respect. Grandma's a hero. Despite the heaviness of the moment, I had to smile. I just did what grandmas do, protect their families. The conversation was hard but necessary. Afterward, Lily came and hugged me tight. Thank you for saving us, Grandma. Frank drove me home that night after Jessica and the kids were settled. You handled that well, he said. All of you did. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, I admitted, staring out the window. Derek's too quiet now. No more letters, no more cards. It makes me nervous. Actually, Frank said, Marcus told me earlier that the prison restricted Derek's mail privileges after they traced those cards. Turns out he was using another inmate's girlfriend to send them. Once they found out, they shut it down. That explained the silence. Good. Maybe he'll finally realize he has no power anymore. Frank pulled into my driveway but didn't turn off the engine. Barb, can I ask you something? Of course. When this is all over, when Derek's sentenced and Jessica's rebuilt her life, what do you want? For yourself? I looked at this man who'd somehow become essential to my daily life. I want peace, I said. I want to watch my grandkids grow up. I want to stop looking over my shoulder. And us? His voice was soft. What do you want for us? I took his hand. I want everything we missed out on 40 years ago, if you're offering. His smile was brilliant, even in the dim light of the car. I'm offering. I'm asking. Barbara Hayes, when this nightmare is finally over, will you let me court you properly? Dates and flowers and all the romance we were too young to appreciate back then. Frank Morrison, I said. I would like that very much. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I'm falling in love with you all over again, Barb. Good, I whispered, because I never really stopped. The peace lasted 2 days. The anonymous email arrived on a Thursday morning. No sender address, no subject line, just a single sentence. Derek wasn't working alone. Watch your back. I forwarded it to Marcus immediately. His response was instant. Don't open any attachments. Don't click any links. I'm tracing this. Within hours, Marcus was at my door with Detective Chen. We need to talk about Derek's associate, Marcus said, sitting at my kitchen table. "Someone named Vincent Hall." "Who?" Marcus pulled out a file. "Vincent Hall, 42, Derek's cellmate back in 2013. They kept in contact after release. We found encrypted messages between them dating back 3 years. Vincent helped Derek with the financial transfers, set up the fake accounts in the Cayman Islands. He's the one who booked the Costa Rica flights." My blood ran cold. "Is he still out there?" "Yes," Chen said. "And according to the messages, he's not happy Derek got caught. He thinks you and Jessica ruined a very profitable operation." Detective Chen leaned forward. "Mrs. Hayes, we're putting protection on you and your family. Vincent Hall has a history of violence that Derek lacks. If he blames you for Derek's arrest, you could be in real danger." "What about Jessica? The kids?" I asked, my voice rising. "Already arranged," Chen said. "Plain clothes officers watching their house. We're taking this seriously." Frank insisted on staying at my house that night. "I'm not leaving you alone with some violent criminal lurking around," he said, carrying a duffel bag through my front door. "You could get hurt," I argued weakly. "So could you, and I'm not letting that happen." He squeezed my hand. "Besides," he added with a grim little smile, "I've got a shotgun in my truck, legally registered and everything. Anyone tries to hurt you, they'll regret it." Despite the terrifying situation, I felt safer with him there. We sat in my living room, the lights low, pretending to watch an old black and white movie. Frank had brought his shotgun inside, resting it by the door. We were pretending everything was normal. Around midnight, my security system chimed. Not the loud alarm, but the soft chime that meant a door or window sensor had been activated. "Someone's in the backyard," I whispered, my heart leaping into my throat. Frank grabbed his phone and dialed 911, whispering our address and the situation. I pulled up the security camera feed on my tablet. A figure dressed in dark clothing and a ski mask was at my back door, testing the handle, looking for a way in. "Police are on their way," Frank whispered, his eyes on the tablet. 2 minutes out. The figure on the screen moved from the door to the kitchen window. He pulled something from his pocket, a crowbar. "He's going to break in," I breathed. Frank moved, grabbing his shotgun from by the door. "Stay behind me." "Frank, don't," I pleaded. The kitchen window shattered, the sound echoing through the house like a gunshot. The figure started climbing through. Frank pumped the shotgun. The shuck-shuck sound was unmistakable, terrifyingly loud in the quiet house. "I'd stop right there if I were you," Frank yelled, his voice a commanding roar I'd never heard before. The figure froze, half in and half out of my window. Then the night exploded with sirens. Red and blue police lights flooded my yard and my living room. The figure tried to scramble back, to run, but he tripped on the broken windowsill, falling hard onto my kitchen floor. Officers poured through my front door seconds later, weapons drawn. "Police, get on the ground!" "Show me your hands." They had the intruder in handcuffs within moments. When they pulled off the ski mask, I saw a sallow-faced man with dead eyes, a man I'd never met. "Vincent Hall," an officer said, reading his driver's license. Detective Chen arrived 10 minutes later, her face grim. "You okay, Mrs. Hayes?" "I'm fine," I said, my voice shaking. "Thanks to Frank." Vincent Hall was screaming as they dragged him to the police car. "You can't prove anything. I was just checking on her. Derek asked me to make sure she was safe." "Sure," Detective Chen said dryly, watching him being shoved into the car. "That's why you broke her window with a crowbar at midnight. For her safety." After everyone left and the window was temporarily boarded up, Frank and I sat on my couch. The adrenaline was wearing off and I was shaking. "He was going to hurt me," I whispered. "But he didn't," Frank said, pulling me close. "And now he can't. It's over, Barb. For real this time. Derek's in custody. Vincent's arrested. You're safe." Vincent Hall's arrest broke the case wide open. Faced with charges of breaking and entering, attempted assault and conspiracy, he started talking. He cut a deal with the prosecutors. Testify against Derek in exchange for reduced charges. Vincent gave us everything, Marcus told me and Jessica a week later. Bank records, communication logs, details about other victims we didn't even know about. Derek's going away for life, guaranteed. The trial was set for April, 6 months away. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Linda Reeves, met with us to prepare our testimonies. Derek's lawyer will try to paint him as a victim, she warned us. Someone who made mistakes but never intended real harm. We need you, all of you, to show the jury the truth. The Survivor Circle met more frequently as the trial approached, a digital support group. We supported each other through panic attacks, nightmares, and moments of doubt. Amanda Pierce, the woman whose sons had forgotten her, became like a sister to me. I never thought I'd be grateful to Derek for anything, she said during one of our calls, but he brought all of us together. We're stronger now than we ever were. Frank proposed on a Saturday in February, nothing fancy, just the two of us having dinner at my house. I was clearing the plates. He got down on one knee right there in my kitchen, holding a simple gold band. I wasted 40 years, Barb, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I don't want to waste another day. Will you marry me? I said yes before he even finished the question, pulling him to his feet. We decided to wait until after the trial to actually get married. We wanted Jessica and the kids to be fully healed, to have a celebration that was untainted by Derek's shadow. Jessica was thrilled when we told her. Dad would be so happy, Mom, she said, hugging me. He always said Frank was the one that got away. The trial began on April 15th. The courthouse was packed. Media vans lined the street. Cameras recorded our every move as we walked in. Derek walked in wearing an orange jumpsuit, looking thinner and older than I remembered. His charm was gone, replaced by a sullen arrogance. His eyes found mine in the gallery. For a moment, I saw pure, unadulterated hatred. Good, I thought. Hate me all you want. You're still going to prison, and I'm going to watch. The prosecutor's opening statement was devastating. She laid out Derek's entire pattern of deception, a timeline of victims, the stolen children, the millions of dollars. The jury looked horrified. Derek's lawyer tried to counter, painting his client as a troubled man who'd lost his way, but it rang hollow. I testified on day 3. I walked the jury through finding the envelope, the confrontation with Jessica, the terror I'd felt knowing my grandchildren were in danger. He wasn't just stealing money, I said, my voice clear and strong, locking eyes with the jury. He was stealing childhoods. He was stealing futures. He was stealing families. Jessica testified next. Her voice was steady, strong, and filled with a righteous anger. I trusted him with everything, my heart, my children, my inheritance. He repaid that trust by planning to kidnap my babies and disappear. That's not a mistake, that's evil. One by one, the other victims testified. Amanda Pierce broke down on the stand, describing the 2 years she spent not knowing if her sons were alive or dead. Karen Stiles showed photos of her daughter, before and after, the trauma visible in the child's haunted eyes. By day 7, the jury was visibly upset. Vincent Hall's testimony on day 8 sealed Derek's fate. He described their partnership in cold clinical detail, the fake identities they'd created, the offshore accounts, the escape routes they'd planned. Derek was always the face, Vincent said, looking bored. I was the logistics. We made millions over the years. It was a business to us. A business that destroyed families, the prosecutor said coldly. The defense tried to discredit Vincent, pointing out his plea deal, but the evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, emails, recorded phone calls from prison. There was no denying what Derek had done. Closing arguments happened on day 12. The prosecutor spoke for an hour, systematically dismantling any possible sympathy for Derek. This is a man who built his life on the suffering of others. He deserves no mercy, because he showed none. The jury deliberated for only 6 hours. When they returned, the foreman's voice was firm. Guilty. On all counts. Derek's face went blank. His lawyer slumped in defeat, and in the gallery, 7 mothers clutched each other's hands and cried with relief. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, looked at Derek with open disgust. "Mr. Morrison, or Brennan, or whatever your real name is," she began. "I've presided over many cases in my career, but I have rarely encountered someone as callous and calculated as you. You targeted vulnerable families. You stole not just money, but years of people's lives. You traumatized children for your own gain." She sentenced him to 45 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole. Derek would be 93 years old if he ever got out. The courtroom erupted in applause. The judge banged her gavel, but she didn't try very hard to restore order. As they led Derek away in chains, he looked at me one last time. His face was a mask of hatred. I met his gaze steadily, refusing to look away. "You lose," I thought. "We won. And you'll spend the rest of your life knowing it." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us, but Linda Reeves, our prosecutor, handled it beautifully. "These women showed incredible courage," she said to the cameras. "They refused to be victims. They fought back, and they won. That's the real story here." The survivors' circle went to dinner that night. 7 women who'd started as strangers, now bonded by shared trauma and triumph. We toasted with champagne and laughed until we cried. "To Barbara," Amanda said, raising her glass, "who started this journey and led us through it." "To all of us," I corrected. "We did this together." Frank and I got married 3 months later in a small, perfect ceremony in my backyard. Lily was the flower girl, scattering petals. Owen was the ring bearer, taking his job very seriously. Jessica stood beside me as my matron of honor, her eyes shining. Marcus and Detective Chen came as guests. Even Linda Reeves showed up with a beautiful gift. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister said. "You may kiss your bride." Frank did thoroughly, while our small gathering cheered. When we pulled apart, he whispered, "40 years late, but worth the wait." "Absolutely worth it," I whispered back. A year passed. Jessica had started therapy and was doing well. The kids were resilient, bouncing back with the incredible adaptability of youth. She'd even started dating again, carefully, slowly, but with hope. The house that had been tainted by Derek's presence was sold. She'd bought a smaller place, closer to me. The inheritance money Derek had stolen was recovered from Vincent Hall's seized assets and returned to Jessica after the trial. She used some of it to pay off her new mortgage and put the rest in trust for Lily and Owen's college funds. "This time," she told me, "I'm keeping control of my own finances." Frank and I merged our lives with surprising ease. He sold his car wash to his nephew and semi-retired. We traveled. We took up dancing. We spent time with the grandkids. Simple pleasures that felt extraordinary after everything we'd been through. One evening, almost a year after Derek's sentencing, Jessica and the kids came for dinner. We ate on the patio, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. Lily chattered about her soccer team. Owen showed us his latest rock collection. It was normal, beautiful, peaceful. "You know what I was thinking about today?" Jessica said, sipping her iced tea. "That envelope Frank found. Such a small thing, really. A forgotten envelope under a car seat. But it changed everything." Frank reached for my hand across the table. "Sometimes the smallest things have the biggest impact." "Sometimes the right person notices at the right time," I added, "and has the courage to act." "And sometimes," Jessica said, her voice thoughtful, "bad things happen that lead to good things. I would never have chosen to go through what Derek put us through, but it brought you and Frank back together. It connected us with the other survivors. It taught me I'm stronger than I ever knew." I looked around at my family. My daughter, who'd survived and thrived. my grandchildren who were healing, my husband who'd waited 40 years for a second chance. You know what? You're absolutely right. As darkness fell and the fireflies began their dance, Frank pulled me close. Happy, Mrs. Morrison? Deliriously, I said, and meant it. The nightmares would probably never fully disappear. The scars Derek left would always be there, faint but present. But we'd taken something terrible and transformed it into something powerful. We'd found justice. We'd found each other. We'd found ourselves. "Grandma," Lily called from the yard where she was chasing fireflies with Owen. "Come play with us." I looked at Frank. He grinned. "Go ahead. I'll clean up." I kicked off my sandals and ran into the yard, chasing fireflies with my grandchildren, while my daughter laughed from the patio and my husband watched with love in his eyes. 65 years old and running around like a teenager. Derek had tried to destroy us. Instead, we'd built something beautiful from the ashes. He'd failed, and we'd won. Not just in court, but in every moment since. Every laugh, every hug, every peaceful sunset, every single ordinary, extraordinary day. And that was the greatest victory of all. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.